All right, I've got a peculiar video for you today, and a little bit pointless, I'll admit. I'd set out to make a video about the Sony cameras, the more recent ones that have that 4K 30 capability over USB, where they just show up. It's like a UVC, whatever protocol, where you just plug them in your computer over USB-C, and then you can use them as a webcam or as a streaming device. I like that protocol a lot, but only some of the recent cameras have the 4K 30. But I know that people were having issues with overheating and performance when using that protocol, so I thought, well, the 4K 31 has to certainly be worse. Let's actually do a roundup and see which camera can maintain that 4K 30, live streaming / webcam functionality for the longest, the most reliably. That was the goal. And I did do that, and I do have an answer for you. But in the process of testing it, I've come to completely hate all forms of overheating testing and find them completely unreliable. I must have done 30 to 40 rundown tests, and the results are all over the map to an extreme level that you won't even believe it. Let's just talk about the results. So first of all of these tests were conducted between 21.5 Celsius to 23, which is about 71 to 73 Fahrenheit. And I have to give a range because I don't have like a heat chamber. I'm doing it in my basement, and it was winter time when I was running these, so the furnace would come on, it would heat it up to a certain temperature. I would try to run the tests, but it would slowly decrease, and then the furnace would come back on. So that range, that 1.5 degrees, is from like the hottest right after the furnace just ran to the lowest before it would come back on. But I still think it's important because nobody is going to probably have an environment that they're using these in where they're keeping it to within 1/10 of a degree all the time. It's going to fluctuate in every environment. So if your results fluctuate to such a degree when I'm controlling it down to 1.5 degrees, that matters. So the cameras that I tested were the A6700, the ZV-E1, the A7C2, and the A7CR, which I have here, and then the A9 III. And obviously this video is not sponsored by Sony. They didn't have any input on this. They did lend me the A9 III for this test, but the other cameras I borrowed from Camera Canada. Once again, huge thank you to them. They always come in a pinch when I need to borrow some stuff. This video is sort of brought to you by this new t-shirt though, the Banana Anatomy Diagram t-shirt, which is for sale now. I've been talking about it a little bit ahead of time. It's even got the little bananas joke from that video for anybody who remembers the banana review video. Anyway, they're available now. I'll put a link in the description. I think they're pretty cool. This is what they look like. Kind of blend into the background with it on. Maybe don't wear it in front of a purple background, but anyway, if you like the shirt, pick one up. I think they're great. To give you some times, on the A6700, I got 22 minutes and 56 seconds, and then it overheated. On the A7C2, I got 37 minutes. I ran it a second time, and I got 30 minutes, so between 30 and 37. Both of those are not great candidates for this 4K 30 live streaming. I had some good results with the A7CR, and so I was gonna tell you, that's the one. That's the one. If you wanna do streaming right over USB with a Sony camera in 4K 30, get the A7CR, because the first time I ran a test, I got 1 hour and 46 minutes with the 4K 30, and I thought, great, that's a good result. 4 hours and 53 minutes was the next test. So that's when I was like, okay, let me get this furnace, let me get all the ambient temperature just dialed right in so I can see what's causing it, because like to go from 1 hour and 20 to 4 hours and 53 is such a drastic change. And of course I'm leaving cool down times between this. Like the 4 hour and 53 minutes, that takes me till nighttime. I go to bed, I wake up the next day and I run them again. So the camera's cooled down for hours. And then I ran the test again and I got 54 minutes. So we went from 4 hours and 53 minutes to 54 minutes with the temperature probably less than a degree difference. So I was like, it can't be that huge of a difference with ambient, right? So again, checked it, measured the temperature, made sure everything was all rigged up, ran it again. 8.5 hours. And then I just turned it off and went to bed. I left it running all day, basically. And it just kept going. And I had OBS and I was recording everything and nothing was changing. And any of these tests with any of these cameras was all the same setup, the same sort of tripod, the same subject. I put a video of me talking and moving my hands and stuff like that on a loop, so I would have eye autofocus and there'd be a lot of like moving pixels and stuff. Same stabilization settings, everything was identical, everything. And I could get a fluctuation between 55 minutes and 8.5 hours within like a degree and a half ambient temperature difference. And if it really was the ambient temperature, when that 8.5 hours was running, it would have gone up and down and up and down. The ambient would have had that 1.5 degree change, and at no point did it make it overheat. So doing this test completely kind of like shattered my understanding of what we've come to expect from overheating results for Sony. At the same time I was doing this, Philip Bloom was working on his ZV-E1 review that he posted a couple weeks ago. And we were chatting about, what we were up to. And I was telling him about this. And he says, oh, I'm actually doing the ZV-E1. And he mentioned that when I did my original review on the ZV-E1, that I got 56 minutes in this 4K 30 mode, because that camera was the first camera that had this 4K 30 live streaming. So I was excited when I tested it. I was like, look, I got 56 minutes with the 4K 30 live streaming. So I said, well, hey, Philip, since you got the camera anyway, and you're in a different environment, and you'll do things slightly different, can you do a couple live streaming tests for me? And so he did. He had pretty much the exact same experience. That's the best part, is he started doing it, and he's like, yeah, I ran for 2 hours, and then I shut it down and went to bed. No problems, no warning, no anything. And I was like, okay, well, that's better than I got. And then he ran it again, and he got 24 minutes. And he was like, let me see here. There must be something. Maybe the ambient was different. And his place is even like a degree or two cooler than mine. But again, within the entire ambient swing for him was, again, only a couple degrees. Just shift his entire temperature down, 1 or 2 degrees. And so then he runs it again, and he gets 3.5 hours or something like that. And he texts me, okay, now I got 3.5 hours. And I even started recording internally halfway through, and it still didn't overheat. So I don't know, I'll run it again, and that will help me decide if it's ambient or not. And then I think he ran it again the next morning, 34 minutes and overheat. So he was in the exact same situation as me, where he said, all the tests are ruined, I don't know what to think, because the times are absurd. Basically the same thing. He went from 30 minutes to almost 4 hours with almost nothing changing. How does that make any sense? And I had the extreme where I could go from 55 minutes one time, 8.5 hours the next time. Now, all that being said, well, I guess, and we also did the A9 III, which had a very similar experience to maybe the ZV-E1 and the A7CR, which is I got 40 minutes, then 2 hours 20, then 41 minutes, then 4 hours, and I turned it off. So again, completely inconsistent. All I can really say is that there's some cameras that consistently did not perform for a long period of time, and that'd be the A6700 and the A7C2. And I have a theory as to why that is. I think it's the oversampling. And Mr. Fuji X106 sitting right here is gonna support that claim. The A7CR doesn't oversample in that 4K 30 live streaming mode. It does the proprietary, pixel binning thing. And so I think that's the reason why it can perform a lot better. The A9 III maybe can perform not as good as the A7CR, but better than the smaller bodies because it's a bigger body, more robust. It can handle the oversampling that it does do better. And then the ZV-E1, it doesn't oversample as much. It's like, what, like 4.2K or something like that, down to 3800. So it's not required to do as much, which is good because that body is kind of compact and hot. So that's how I think we get the tier. It's like the one that doesn't oversample performs the best. Then the A9 III and the ZV-E1 have trade-offs so that it performs second best. And then the A6700 and A7C2 are oversampling with compact bodies and they overheat fastest. But the Fuji X106, which I'm going to make a bit more in depth of a video on this than just this, but I had this sent to me around the time that I was wrapping this up, so I ran a test on this as well. It gives you the option when recording to choose like an HQ mode or a non-HQ mode, and the HQ mode oversamples from the 6K and the non-HQ mode does not. When you connect the USB to do, oh, by the way, I didn't mention this, the Fuji also has that, convenient plug it in UVC protocol thing where it just shows up as a video device with no software, nothing, it just works. Apparently this generation, so that would be like the X-T5 and like whatever cameras are of that generation of Fuji, including this X106, all have that protocol. I just haven't tested them before. So this gave me an opportunity to test that protocol. When you plug it in, it smartly goes to non-HQ. And when I ran these two side by side, my sort of winner of Sony and the X106, they both ran for 3 hours and 58 minutes, and then I turned them off because I was like, okay, 4 hours is enough. I guess I just want you to know two things. This is my conclusion. One, if you need a Sony camera to, for some reason, also be a live streaming camera over USB, or you want to take your Sony camera and use it for, conference calls and you want to do it in 4K 30, which camera will last the longest? It's the A7CR. And apparently the Fuji Gen 5 Fujis are pretty good at too, which I didn't know until just now. But the second thing I want you to take away from this video is that overheating tests are a lot less reliable than even the people who, like myself, who were a little bit raised eyebrow about them. They're even significantly less reliable than that. If you remember some of my videos lately, I've been like, hey, it lasted for an hour and a half for me, but that was in this environment, in this situation. Your results may vary. My results may vary, apparently, drastically, from 55 minutes to 8.5 hours. So just keep that in mind. That's all I'm saying. And until somebody, me or somebody else, gets some kind of heat chamber where they can control it to 1/10 of a degree and run that test 10 times, with some systematic method, take overheating results with a finer grain of salt than you were already. 8.5 hours to 55 minutes? What is that? What is that? All right, I'm done.